Welcome to WWE Raw! Now on this side we have former president of Zambia, President Edgar. And on this side we have current president of Zambia, President Ishelema. Now you know how we do WWE Raw? Fight! Now, when we want to talk about Zambia, I'll talk about my experience with them on a personal level. I went to a medical school that was very diverse in terms of nationalities. We had the Congolese, we had the Zimbabweans, we had the Zambians, we had the Pakistans, the Indians, occasional white, all of that. We had all kinds of nationalities where I got to interact with. It exposed my mind a bit to a lot of how people see the world and their country and all of that. Anyways, when I interacted with the Zambians, I'll tell you this about them. They are a fun-loving people. They like to drink. They are a fun-loving people. They're nice. I didn't have a problem with them, but those were the things that just stood out to me about them. Another thing that took my attention and made me do this video was when I learned that the Zambia kwacha is currently racing against the dollar in terms of strongest currency currently in the world. And I was like, Zambia? Girl, tell me something that I don't know. So apparently a lot of factors are responsible for why their Zambia kwacha suddenly became stronger in 2026, and it has to do with their copper mines and how they pay, how companies pay the Zambians. They no longer use dollars. I think they switched over to using yuan or local currency. And then recently in the country, they've been disencouraging the use of any other thing other than local currency. And a lot of other factors are contributing to that. But anyways, when I saw that, I was very interested in Zambia. I said, oh my God, tell me more about yourself, baby. We're on a date. So Zambia, we can talk to me. I should be able to tell me about herself. And then I found out that the past two presidents had beef. This beef was not just a current beef. This beef extended to beyond the grave. I said, tell me something. Give me the tea. To understand the scope of, Zambia's political landscape, obviously there's a lot to learn in terms of their landscape. Um, I've seen some talks of tribalism, ethnic conflicts, talks of corruption within their government and all of that, which for someone like me that's also coming out of an African country, pretty normal-ish for us. Okay, but that beef was not normal. I had to talk about it. So to understand it, we have to talk about the last president of Zambia, who, by the way, is deceased, which made the whole thing even more bizarre to me. Like, why was the beef this bad? Anyways, President Edgar rose into power when the previous president, who was in the middle of his elected tenure, suddenly died, which is something I noticed among Zambia presidents for a lot of reasons. Their presidents, I think two or three of them died whilst in office, and I was like, why are they dying? But I think it had to do with health-related issues. I don't know, I'm not quite sure. Please, any Zambians watching the video, please, anything I'm saying wrong, just correct me. I don't know. So, yeah, we were I think the most President Sata, while he was in the middle of his, or rather, he had one more year to complete his electoral tenure, and he died. So they had some sort of election to say who was going to finish up his remaining 1 year in the office, and that was how President Edgar came into power, and he ruled for the first term, and then he also ruled again for a second term, and then he attempted to run for a third term, and everybody was just like, nah, we're not going to do that dictatorship nonsense that's currently happening in a lot of African countries here in Zambia. His leadership had merits. He invested in infrastructure. Apparently he appointed the first ever vice female president, a female vice president for the first time ever. There's a lot of things that he did well, in terms of managing the nation's diverse investments, health, education, and otherwise. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Because sometimes I've noticed that an economic boom can happen in most African countries, and the people don't ever get to partake of that. It will just be those in power and whoever is affiliated with them. That's why I keep saying, if what I'm saying only related to a few people in power, please correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you. Anyways, so a lot of people were kind of dissatisfied with his government because he had, according to them, he had a bad way of managing the country's debt. Zambia went into a lot of debt, and people were like, why are we going into a lot of debt? And he was like, because I'm trying to fix up the country. And they're like, it doesn't make any sense to us. And it's just like, mind your business. It's like, it's our country. Yeah, he was a low-key dictator. He did not like political positions of any kind. He had dictatorial tendencies, according to some sources, you know what I'm saying? But overall, it didn't seem like he was, Idi Amin bad. It just seemed like few wee crazy madness here and there. Anyway, we'll bring up the second opponent into the ring, President Hichilema. President Hichilema is actually a very good role model for what we call don't ever give up. You cannot afford to give up on your dreams. I feel like he's the example of that because I don't know why this man ran for presidency 5 times. I think he ran in 2008. He ran again in 2006, 2008. I think he also ran again in 2012, then 2018. I don't know, I'm not quite sure. I'm guessing these years correctly, but I know he ran 5 times. All right, and I think it was during his fourth time that he and Edgar kind of ran into each other politically. I don't know if they knew each other before then. I'm not quite sure, but they ran into each other politically, and yeah, like I said, people were a bit dissatisfied with Edgar's government. So the first time when Edgar ran for presidency was, like I said, during the last remaining 1 year tenure for the person that just died, right? So that was then. Then the second term he ran, he did his 5 years. Then he wanted to run again for a third term on the basis that, hey, I only did 1 year to complete somebody else's term. And then the constitution and the people were like, that's not our business. You've run, that was one term, whether it was 1 year, whether it was 10 years, that was one term. And now you run again for a second term. Number three, why should we try this other guy, Hichelema? We feel like he might be a better fit. Anyway, so he ran against Hichelema ran against Edgar, lost, ran again, I think in 2018 elections. Lord help me if I'm wrong, I'll add the correct dates down below. Ran against him, but Edgar won, but then he noticed something. His opponent was getting higher ranges in votes every time they met each other at the polls. You know what I'm saying? And Hichelema was like, yes, I'm that guy. And Edgar was like, if I allow him to roam free and my plans to contest for a third time as the president is actually successful, which by the way it was not, he might win me at the polls. So I will have a good conversation with him, tell him to back off, give him a place in government, try to reason with him. Maybe I could see his own side of the story, his own side of life, and even become his best friend. Obviously, no, that's not what happened. He threw the man in jail. This is Africa, my dear. Nobody has dialogues with you about what they think or what they are scared of. No, this is a power grab. They took that man, Hichelema, and they threw him into jail. What do you think he was going to do? Invite the guy for tea? If he was going to invite that guy for tea, that tea most likely will be poisoned. Catch up. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, Hichilema said after the re-elections, he was chilling in his house with his wife, his kids, his house staff, and one or two people. When suddenly at around past 12 thereabouts, I'm not quite sure if that was the accurate time, a group of policemen burst into the house. Everybody hands up, and then everybody was just like, are you here to arrest somebody? You're like, yeah, the political opponent Hichelema. And then they run into the house, and then I think the staff obviously resisted them because, like, if you're going to arrest somebody, just come to the door like a normal human being with a warrant and then take the guy calmly out of the house into your vehicle and then drive up. But no, 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 no. Zambia and Africa as a whole just has to show themselves. They burst into that house, they subdued the staff, they threw in what do you call it, smoke bombs into the house. And then one report said that Hichelema's wife was actually asthmatic, so she kind of went into crisis, which was very much messed up. These police people, I don't know what kind of police people they sent to that man's house, but they were hungry because they went in and raided Hichelema's kitchen and stole some of the food stuff that was there. And then somebody among the police force defecated on his bed. Imagine this scene where like people are being said, lie down on the floor, and then another part of the house people are raiding your kitchen, and then somebody's just taking a whole easy dump on your bed, and then your wife is just right there convulsing on the ground saying, I can't breathe, honey, I can't breathe. And then your children are just like, what the hell is going on? And you're just here, being dragged by the police. Like, it was a lot happening. Anyways, they take Ichelema to jail. People start rioting. Why the hell are you doing this? They said he committed treason. They said, okay, how did he commit treason? They said, that's none of your business. It's our business. We like him. We don't like you. And they said, that's why it's none of your business. And they shut down the internet, and then they imposed a curfew, and then they took Hichelema to jail, honey, on the grounds of treason. And a lot of international community condemned the act. People from South Africa and some other places tried to visit him. Some were allowed, some were turned back. And a lot of things were happening. Now, while Hichelema was in jail, one of the weirdest things happened. Apart from the usual suffering and torture, where, okay, you're not really giving food, you're not giving preferential treatment in any way, form, or shape, you're not even allowed to poo properly. Hichelema said while he was in jail, they would spray pepper spray on his penis, on his genital. And I would just like to solemnly ask, why? Why? Did you all want to castrate him? Did you want to make sure he never bore? Like, I'm trying to... He's already in jail. He's not escaping. He's not going anywhere. I feel like the people who did that were those part of those crazy police people who burst into his house, and they just did it for the love of the game. Because why? Or was that a sick, twisted fantasy of Edgar? Maybe I should do like a whole separate content called African Presidents Secretly Gay. No, don't worry, I'm not doing that. But seriously. Anyways, after a while, I think about 2, 3 months in jail, the pressure was too much from international and even within, so they had to release him and let him go home. Damn. And so he went home and, prepped himself strong. And I think that action that Edgar committed was what tilted more people to Hichelema's favor, because the next elections, Hichelema won. Now, have you heard this saying that one good turn deserves another? Yeah, but in this case, it was one horrible turn deserves another. But the good thing is that Hichelema did not throw Edgar into jail nor spray pepper spray on his own genitals as payback because weird. But he did this. He did kind of place the man on house arrest. If Edgar wanted to jog, policemen would tell him, hey, your face is disturbing the atmosphere of the populace. We don't like that, so you're going back in the house. And he's like, I'm just trying to travel. So we don't care. We don't like your face. It's too ugly. I'm enjoying this way too much. I'm so sorry if this is particularly disheartening to any Zambia or member of both families, but it was just hilarious to me that this story was hilarious. Oh my god. Anyway, so he was basically on house arrest. Hichelema tried, there was some corruption audits that were done on his presidency, and everybody that was associated with him. So everybody was complaining in Edgar's family like, we are being treated unfairly, we are being treated unfairly, but all of you forgot what your person did to Hichelema when he was not yet president. One crazy turn deserves another, but those words are not in the Bible. Anyways, Hichilema gets into presidency. It's actually under his presidency that the Zambia kwacha is actually catching up. So I would say economically is doing a good job. A weird thing that came out during his presidency was some bishop came out and accused Hichelema of being a Satanist. And I just want to know if that guy was in any way related to Edgar, because what? I tried to find the basis on which he would make the accusation, and I could not find anything. So I was just like, oh, so you just woke up one morning and said, the president is a Satanist, he drinks blood. And the president did not find that funny. He said, you're going to jail if you don't shut up and stop lying on my head. And he shut up and stopped lying on his head. So, okay. Anyways, apart from those slight interactions here and there, they did not really have much to do with each other, Edgar and President Hichilema, until Edgar kind of had some medical conditions which required him to be in hospital for a long time, and eventually flew out to South Africa to get treatments for the medical condition, and unfortunately he did not make it and he died. And the pettiest part of this drama was apparently one of his dying wishes was that he never wanted President Hichilema to come close to his body. I said, how do you hate somebody that bad that when you're supposed to be writing, oh, this part of my estate goes to this part of my family, my son, come, let me give you an advice for life. My daughter, stay away from men who just want to flip your skirt over. Like, you should be passing on wisdom. So on your dying bed, when you carried out all your wishes, one of them was the current president should not be allowed to step close to your body, which is very ironic because you are, or you were a past president rather. If your body is coming in, obviously the country would have to give you special honors, and more often than not, the president is supposed to be there as part of honors. You know what I'm saying? So you see why this beef was funny. Anyways, the president of Gambia, sorry, I'm so sorry, the president of Zambia said, hey, the past president has died, condolences to his family. In fact, we're going to declare some days of mourning. We're going to receive him in his full honors as he's brought back to the country and all of that, right? So things were going smoothly, cooperation between Hichilema and the deceased family until something happened. I don't know what happened, but maybe President Hichilema, ahead of the dying wishes of the past president, I was like, you know what? I'm not quite sure that's what happened. I'm just talking. But for whatever reason, the collaboration or the cooperation between the presidency and the family of Edgar broke down. All of a sudden, they said, we're not going to bury our dad in Zambia. And then the president came out and announced that the mourning period was over and everybody moved on. And I imagine that in Zambia, I'll be like, what? What happened? Why? Girl, girl. So I'm not quite sure if they actually brought the body back eventually to bury or they just buried him in South Africa. I don't know. There was a bit of tussle that was happening, and President Chelema just raised up his hand like, "Hey, I got other things to do. Like I can't be doing this with you all. Like low-key, I don't like you all. I'm just doing my best to be a honorable president. But if you just the game you want to play, I'm gonna play it." And then he moved on. I don't know what to make of this story. I'm just happy Zambia's economy is doing pretty well because most times when I discuss about African countries, I just want to weep. But I'm happy that Zambia, in some sense, is it's gaining value and giving value. This beef was hilarious. Um, a lot of things could have been avoided. Like you all did not have to spray that man's genitals pepper spray. But you know what? Whatever floats your boat, I guess. I'll see you all on the next episode. Bye.